Hey guys, welcome to 7th grade lesson 12. So let's start off with number 2. Number 2 says Martin scored 120 points in a video game and Mary scored negative 30 points. And it asks how many more points did Martin score than Mary? In this problem, we'll be using subtraction to find how many more points exactly Martin scored than Mary. So the equation would be 120 minus negative 30. And as you know, negative 30 being subtracted would equal a positive. And so that would be 120 plus 30, which results in the answer 150. And so the answer to this equation would be A, 150, because of the rule that negative 30, or when a negative gets subtracted, it equals the same thing as it being added. Now on to the next question, number 4. Number 4 says, the distance from the school to theater is 3.2 miles, and the distance from the school to the post office is 1.9 miles. What is the least possible distance between the theater and the post office? So this question is asking the distance between the theater and the post office. What is the least possible distance? So in this equation, the least narrows down everything to just 3.2 minus 1.9, because the other options don't match, because let's say you put 3.2 plus 1.9, that is not the least distance, because the distance between the two places would be it would probably be the greatest distance, because if you think about it in a diagram, if the theater is 3.2 miles and the post office is 1.9, then the distance from here to here is clearly greater than in this picture if we do 3.9 subtracting 3.2 and 1.9 somewhere around here. So the distance between here and here is much less than distance from here to here. That's just an explanation of the problem. But anyway, okay, so let's get on to solving this equation. So this equation, you would solve it 3.2 minus 1.9. And when you solve this equation, fix that 3. Okay, so it's 12. And when you put this into a 12, you make this into a 2. 12 minus 9 would become 3. Don't forget the decimal. And 2 minus 1 is 1. So your answer would be 1.3 miles. And the only answer that has 1.3 miles is A. So your answer to this equation, this problem, would be 1.3 miles, A. Alright, next on to the next part of this worksheet. It's find the product. And as we all know, the product is the solution to two numbers being multiplied. So let's start off with number 4. Number 4 is negative 8 times negative 11. And as I stated earlier, two negatives equal a positive. So it applies to even multiplication. So this would be the same thing as 8 times 11. And the answer to that would be 88. Alright, so let's try another problem. Let's try number 47. So it's negative 42 times negative 1 over 6. So in this equation, two negatives, so our answer should be positive. So 1 over 6 times any number would be the same thing as dividing it as 6, because if you put it into both of them into a fraction, it would be 42 over 1 times 1 over 6, each with their negative, but as we all know, it's the same thing as the positive version. And so you would come up with 42 divided by 6 with negatives on top and bottom. And as 42 divided by 6, we all know, is 7. And so your answer would be 7, because they're both negatives again. Yeah. So let's try one last problem on this page, and that would be number 11. This time you're multiplying 3 different numbers, but the rule still applies the same. However, as you can see, there's a negative on the half, and a negative on the 6, but there's no negative on the 2. Now, some of you might say this would then result in a negative answer. However, since these two answers, these two numbers multiplied would result in a positive, the whole answer as a total would be still positive. Now, if this 2 was a negative, then that would be a different problem. So let's get on to the problem. So it's 1 over 2, negative 1 over 2, times negative 6 times 2. And let's divide this problem into 2 different steps. So the first step would be to just multiply these 2. And as we all know, when you multiply by a fraction, it's the same as dividing. So it would be negative 6 divided by negative 2. That we all know is 3. And so we take this 3 and multiply it by 2. And that would be 3 times 2, which would be 6. Alright, so the next page shows 3 word problems. So let's just start with the second word problem. And this word problem says, the investigator purchases 50 shares of a stock at $3.50 per share. And the next day, the value of the share of one share of the stock is changed to negative 0.25. So what is the total share of the value of the shares the next day? Since the next day, it says in the problem, the next day, one share is changed to negative 25 cents. So that would mean that we would have to multiply 50 by negative 0.25. And when you do that, you get the same thing as 50 times negative 1 over 4. And when you multiply by a fraction, it's the same as dividing. So it would be 50 over 4 with a negative at front. So when you try to solve this with long division, you get 50 divided by 4, and that would be 1, because only 1 4 can go into 5. So you get 4, subtract, get 10, and you multiply by 2 to get 8. You subtract, and you get 2. So this 2 would become a remainder. So then your final answer for this would be 12. Let me rewrite that. 12 and 2 over 4 as your remainder. 2 over 4 simplifies to 1 over 2. So, and that as a decimal, since this is money, we need to talk about 12.50. That would be your answer to this long division. However, as there's only one negative in this equation, you cannot forget that there is a negative in the answer. So your answer would be negative $12.50. So that's the end of the video. Thank you guys for watching.